Hello, welcome to Other People's Kids, a podcast about Andy and Joey's adventures in fostering and adoption.
Hello and welcome to everyone who is discovering this podcast. Hope you enjoy it and good to have you.
Yep, we're two dads talking all things fostering, adoption, parenting and more. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Joseph. You used my full name again. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I've had a good week. It's been half term, so we've done a bit of caravanning, which has been lovely.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
It's half of a term as well for me. Kids been off, which is obviously another different dynamic, but it's been good to have them around. And we've been doing some fun things. They're out today with the other half on their bikes.
Oh, lovely. And we're chatting, which is lovely.
Chatting. Yeah, lovely.
Did you watch last night? Quite possibly, I think the best TV program ever. My family and I love it. It's Race Across the World. Did you watch the finale?
I didn't. No, so don't tell me any spoilers.
Oh, okay, that's a shame. It's very
better,
good.
you think it's better than Traitors?
I do think it's better than Traitors. I love the stories about the people, about their backgrounds, and you feel emotionally connected to them, and they hug people, and you feel sad. It was a wonderful final, so I recommend you watch it. It's very good. I
should watch it later.
What were you doing to not be watching that then?
So I was invited to a birthday party last night.
And what were you doing at a birthday party, Andy?
Bit of pizza, a few shandies, and some croquet.
Yeah, you were playing croquet. That's an incredibly middle-class party. I like
it. It is, but it was extreme croquet. We were playing. It was kind of dusk into complete dark. What's the word? It started darkness. Started kind of dusk and ended in complete. It started in dusk and ended in complete darkness. So we had to put up lights and massive floodlights to see the course. We were using jumps and ramps and various kids' toys to jump over, and it was good fun.
So for people who aren't posh like Andy who are listening, croquet is where you hit big balls with long wooden hammers through hoops on a lawn.
Well, we only had 3 wooden balls, so I had to use a plastic ball filled with water.
Well, there you go. That sounds like fun.
It was fun, yeah.
That sounds like fun. So, in terms of pod news, big news this week is last week's recording was not great.
Quite low, wasn't it?
It was. So it was lovely to have Stuart on the pod and to interview him. That all went very well, but somehow in post-production, it all got a bit quiet. So apologies for our regular listeners for a slightly quieter pod. Hopefully we'll sort out the levels this week. Hopefully.
So what are we doing this week, Joe?
So today is the good, the bad, and the ugly of fostering and adoption. So we're going to think about what do we really like about what we do, what's not so good, what's bad, and something ugly or unique or different about what
it's going to be different because obviously your role is almost like a job, isn't it? Where mine is a complete lifestyle change. So it'd be different, but it'd be good to kind of look at the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So you are parenting. It's just parenting for you, but with a slightly different start. And for me, fostering is more of it's a weird one. It is a job. It's very much a job, but it's a professional role. But fostering is also something that is very personal as well, because you are sort of parenting as well as being professional and providing the role that you do. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Sorry.
You're like parenting consultants.
Parenting consultants. Yeah, I like that.
You're brought in to do some parenting.
Yeah, parenting experts. Which my children probably wouldn't agree this week. So how are we going to start, Andy?
I think the toss of a coin, Joe.
The toss of a coin. So whoever gets it right goes first? Is that right?
Well, you can choose first or second.
Oh, okay.
So what are you calling? Good. What are you calling?
I'm going to call... It's either going to be heads or tails, I think.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to choose one of them?
It's going to be tails.
Tails for Wales. It is a tail.
It is a tail, so I get to pick. Andy, I think you should go first. I'm going to put you into bat first.
Okay, I'll go in the bat.
And we're starting with the good, aren't we? The good. So a couple of good things about
the good things. Okay,
so the glasses are on.
The glasses are on. So I'm getting.
Oh, here we go. Academic Andy.
very old. I'm looking at my second screen. So I was thinking of what is good about adoption or what was good about becoming an adopted dad. I think the first one is it is an instant family. You go poof, literally overnight. You're given a child or children. In our case, we had two children. So literally the day before we had no children, and the next day, instant family. So you have that kind of instant thing. You do. It's all a bit weird, but you can effectively choose what kind of child you want. Like if you wanted to adopt a boy from a white British background, no older than 3, then you can do that. Or if you wanted a boy and a girl, then you can choose that. You can put that as your preferences. Obviously, if you've got a very narrow breadth for what you're looking for or want to adopt or are able to adopt, then that might limit the children available to you, and the time waiting might be longer. Typically, people who adopt children adopt one and want to adopt as young as possible, which is fine, I guess, because they're trying to replicate that kind of newborn baby thing. But it is weird. It's not like flicking through an adoption brochure like an Argos catalogue, but you are presented with a profile of a child or children, and you'll see a photo. Actually, our children were the first children which were presented to us as good matches. So we hadn't looked at any other children to adopt. We know a couple of other people, I think, looked at it's a terrible phrase, and looked at considered if they were the right match for our family, and they explored lots of different children.
I guess there's also the converse as well, is that whilst you're sort of deciding what you can offer a child in terms of what would work for your family, how it would fit, at the same time, I guess it's also the role of social services looking for which potential adoptive parents fit the needs of that child. So it's very much a matching process, both sides, isn't it? And I think sometimes people can be a bit funny about, well, adopters shouldn't be fussy about who they can have. They should just be happy to have a child. Whereas actually you've got to be realistic about who's going to fit into your family, how it's going to work. You know, are you an active family who's out and about a lot? Are you very booky? You know, that sort of thing. So it's important to kind of match both ways, isn't it?
It is. And actually, through the adoption process, there is a session, and it's quite heavy going, but the social worker will go through a list saying, would you be willing, could you adopt a child with severe physical disabilities, cerebral palsy or learning difficulties? And there's a whole long list. And you do have to be really honest and realistic of what you and your family could do. So that's a really hard process. But on that kind of flip side, there is a lot that is known about that child or children coming to you, as compared to a birth child. They may be born with a condition. You have no idea about that before that kind of birth happens. But with adoption, they have loads of tests done on them, physically and mentally, loads of assessments, and a big report is written up. So there's a lot of knowledge actually everything about them. There are lots of other things which they may not test and know at the time of placement. I mean, one of my children just been diagnosed with something now, and that wasn't known at an early age. So you don't know everything, but you do know quite a lot. So I think my first one is instant family, and you get the choice. You know, what kind of family do you want? Second good thing about adoption: carbon credits.
Carbon credits.
Carbon credits.
Okay, explain this.
Because we're not producing and creating any new humans. I was looking up how many tons of carbon a person will emit during their lifetime. How many tons of carbon?
Probably carbon or methane, Andy.
I don't know. Probably carbon, isn't
it? Carbon. How many grams?
No, how many tons?
Tons.
Tons. Yeah.
I think the average person emits or uses 5 tons of carbon.
So if you were born in the 2010s, and I'm trying to get a direct answer, I had looked at lots of sources. There's roughly about 75 tons of carbon in your lifetime.
Wow.
Will be emitted or used. So we're not producing 2 new people. So actually, we are saving the world, the planet, 150 tons of carbon. So actually, I'm in carbon credit. And if I want to fly my meat first class in a private jet, I'll still be in carbon negative. I'm carbon guilt free. So carbon credits is.
And you drive an electric car.
I do.
You're close to being a saint, really.
I could be saint adopter.
Do you have a third good?
I've actually got six, but
Have a couple more. Oh goodness, six.
the kind of third really good thing is that any kind of bad behavior your children do or does, you can say to someone, he's actually adopted. He's not actually mine, so he's not my gene. So you're going to play that card. Oh, it's not really my child biologically. So you have that kind of card up your sleeve. But any bad behavior you can blame. Oh, he's actually adopted. Yeah. I think selfishly, you feel really good about yourself as well. If I was being honest, obviously we're doing it for the children, but you can't help thinking, oh yeah, I've done something really amazing there, Joe. I've adopted 2 children, and I feel really good about myself. And my final one, I would just say it's an amazing journey, thoroughly amazing from start to finish.
And it was great. I didn't realize you'd have quite so many positive. I particularly enjoyed your negative carbon impact on the world.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the honesty. You know, the kind of instant family thing can seem a bit crass, can't it? But it is a bit like that, isn't it? You go from having sometimes no children to suddenly having multiple children is a bit like instant family. And also, you know, the sense of pride in doing it. I don't think it's wrong to say that you feel good about having done it. You are, you know, giving children a stable, loving, permanent home, who perhaps haven't come from the best start in life. And I think that's a wonderful thing to do. And I think you should be proud of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How about you, Joe?
How about me? What my good things?
Yeah, tell me
about good things about being a foster care. So I've got 3 good things. So the first one is the challenge. So fostering's really hard. It's not easy. There's, you know, sleepless nights, endless meetings with different people, frustration at limited support, trying to meet individual needs of children within a really stretched system, blah, 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 blah. But it is an adventure, similar to yours, really. It is really fun. It's an adventure and it's a challenge to meet the needs of those children. You know, understanding how to help a child who's experienced significant trauma, how to help them feel safe and regulated and give them a sense of stability in your home, or learning to meet a child's medical needs and learning how to, you know, put a pipe into their hole in their stomach, into their guts to help feed them, or even things like learning a little bit of Arabic to help a child's Muslim heritage, or we even took classes on looking after Afro hair for a child we cared for. You know, helping birth parents to kind of get used to looking after a child and supporting them to hopefully soon be able to have their child back again. It's really challenging. It's really hard, but my wife and I really enjoy it. We really enjoy the challenge of fostering. So my number 1 would be the challenge.
I like that. Yeah.
Do my number 2?
Yes, please.
And number 2. This one might come across slightly controversial, but my second really good thing about being a foster carer is saying goodbye. Nearly every time I say to someone that I'm a foster carer, their response is, "Oh, I could never be a foster carer. It's a wonderful thing, but I couldn't say goodbye. I couldn't let them go. It'd be too hard." And I find that difficult because really, as a foster carer, that is the outcome we want. You know, we want the child ideally to return to their birth parent. That actually, after months of sorting things out, the birth parent getting support, making changes in their life, that child can go home to be with their birth parent or a member of the family in a kinship placement. You know, an auntie or an uncle, someone who steps up in order to give that child permanency in a safe home. That's a really good outcome. Or sometimes to a couple or a person to be adopted. People who desperately want to provide a safe and loving home for that child, to understand their needs, to give them the love that they need and the stability that they need, and adopt them. That's a wonderful outcome. You know, we've got, from our experience, we've worked with dads who've changed their lives completely to make sure that he's in a position to care for his son. We've worked with a young auntie who had to learn absolutely loads of medical training and pipes and dealing with doctors all over the place and consultants in order to meet the medical needs of her nephew, or an auntie and uncle who had been through their parenting years in life. But they had adult children, but they sacrificed all that free time they now had so they could care for a young girl in their family and provide a safe and permanent home for her. So saying goodbye for me is one of the most rewarding parts of being a foster carer. And it doesn't always work as we'd like. You know, sometimes we do all we can, but it doesn't work out. Sometimes they go to somewhere for permanence. It doesn't always work out, but the majority of the time it does. And the amount of work from foster carers, from social workers, in trying to support children to go back to their birth homes is huge. And it is heartbreaking. It is the saddest thing we go through whenever we say goodbye to a child and they leave our home. It's incredibly painful, but we know it's worth it because we've committed ourselves to making them feel safe while they're with us. We've given them all the love that we can. So that actually, when it's painful when they go, that kind of means we've done our job because we've loved them as much as we can. And then they go and we feel incredibly sad. But on the flip side, we are happy 99% of the time that they have gone on to a more permanent place, somewhere they can call their forever home.
Well, yours are really deep and meaningful. I wish I had thought about it.
Very deep. No, you've thought about it. I think probably that's it for me for good, I think. I'm just going to go for those two. So the challenge of being a foster carer. And then secondly, saying goodbye, those positive kind of onward steps the children make. The third one would be the money, actually. Let's be honest. It's really helpful having that extra income. So for my wife and I work full time. She's kind of a full-time foster carer. So actually having that income from fostering means we can do that. I don't earn loads of money. I work for a charity. However, we can financially do okay because we've got an extra income for fostering, but it means that she's always at home. She's always at home for our boys and always at home for the children that we foster. So it works really well. So actually the money's really useful. You know, don't become a foster care if you want to get rich. That's not going to happen. But it is helpful having that income. And actually, I think we need to be more open about that when we're thinking about encouraging new people to foster. That actually is a professional role. You are using your skills in parenting and caring for children in a professional way on behalf of the local authority, and actually getting some money for that is right, and it should be the case.
Yeah. I hadn't really appreciated fully how potentially interesting and challenging it could be, because you could be fostering a child from any sort of background, ethnicity, religion, beliefs, culture, which is completely different from your own. I know you've actually had some foreign travel associated with a foster placement. So actually it broadens your life experiences, doesn't it, in terms of fostering children?
It does. Yeah. We've visited other countries because of fostering. We've, done all sorts. And you do, not that many parents, fortunately, have to spend months going into hospital to care for a child who's very, very ill and is having some incredibly big operations. And that's an experience that we've had through fostering more than once. Yeah, there is. Yeah, you're right. You do experience a lot more than perhaps you would otherwise. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Joe, for that.
Should we do some bad stuff? Get onto the real. Let's get real now.
Yeah,
so you're first. What is bad, Andy, about being an adopter?
What's bad about being an adopter? So obviously at some point in the life of this child or children, something has happened which has meant they were not safe in their parental situation or environment. Excuse me. So the state has removed that child from that scenario. So that's tragic already. But I think so that would be kind of classed as trauma in the life of a child. And actually what they kind of grow up with in their first couple of months or years. I mean, they say the first 2 years in a child's development is absolutely critical. And usually a child is taken from that family scenario within those kind of first couple of months or years. So the stuff they grew up with, they witnessed, they experience, post-birth, but actually kind of pre-birth as well, within the kind of womb, they can still experience trauma and stress. It's going to affect them pretty much every single day of their life. When I look at my children and actually other adopted children, the stories I hear from other adopters is that critical development phase and stage and the stuff they went through has totally framed how they view the world, how they view and frame themselves. It's going to view and frame their relationships at school, with peers, future boyfriends, girlfriends, partners, whatever, I'm sure. So it is incredibly tough and hard to parent. We call it therapeutic parenting or therapeutic reparenting children from a trauma background who don't have that, is it secure base or kind of foundational stuff as children from a, quote unquote normal, safe, stable family have. And it is different, and it is challenging. And people within our social peer network, they don't really get it and understand. They will see behaviors, they will see how our children are, and think it's fat. But actually there's a chasm of reasons behind it. So it can be pretty exhausting to therapeutically parent a child from a trauma background. It can be incredibly tough. It's not normal, and it's really sad actually how the choices and decisions their birth parent or sole parent chose to, and some of it might not be their fault. I'm sure in terms of how they were parented and how they were brought up, led them to those decisions. But those decisions they made or how they were acting at that time has and will have a profound effect on their biological children, our now forever family children, for the rest of their lives. And we have to pick up the pieces for that. We have to day in, day out, hour by hour, pick that up, which is tough. I couldn't think of much other bad things other than I think you're constantly assessing when your child is behaving good or bad. You're constantly thinking, is this our parenting, or is this a result of their past experiences and trauma? So you're constantly saying, well, what is that? So there's a lot of kind of, I don't really know to do in this scenario. Is it just that they're being a whingy 6-year-old, or is it because they're coming from a traumatic background and some sort of underlying problem or need which we need to kind of press into? So in terms of behavior, you're constantly assessing, is this because they're of their past, or is it they're just being a stroppy 6-year-old?
I can see that.
I can think of anything else other badness.
Oh, there you go. I've got a few. I've got a few from fostering.
Go for it, Joe.
So the first one is, I think the first bad thing or the difficult thing about fostering is seeing another experience of life. So we talked earlier about, the opportunity of seeing, experiencing lots of things that we wouldn't do normally, really positive, but also just, as the amount of children we've cared for over the years has gone up, the stories they come in with, the neglect, the trauma on an unimaginable scale. And sometimes it's hard to contain it all because you're given as a foster carer, given an idea of why they're in care to different levels of detail sometimes. And it sits with you. You're holding that child on their first night. They're, traumatized. They're crying. They've been taken away from their mother. And you go through all these emotions. You feel angry at the parents, angry at society. That can be allowed to happen. And just the stories are so hard, and they don't. You don't get used to it, but you almost get more numb to it over time. And I kind of feel sad about that. That it hits me every time, but each time I get a little bit more numb to the reality that these children have faced. Because as a human, that's all I can do. I can't really feel it at its full force every time because it would just floor me. So I think that's probably the biggest negative of fostering. It's just the experience of absorbing the terrible things that some children have to go through. My second one, slightly on a different level, is more practical really, is planning life. Why are you pointing upwards?
I had a question.
Oh, just ask a question.
Well,
don't put your hands up, Andy. We're not.
I didn't want to cut over you when you were speaking. It's bad.
Oh, okay.
I
thought you were saying I need to talk louder. Okay.
No, we don't need that.
No.
Remind me how many years you've been fostering again?
We have been fostering for 12 years in our 12
And
years.
has there been a change in the reasons why children come into the care system at the start and the current? Are the reasons being, badder, worse, different in any way?
Not really. I think it's, similar things around neglect, abuse, often, drugs, obviously having a big impact on people's ability to parent. And a lot of the time, it's not always directly the mother. Often the mother may have good skills at parenting. However, the circumstances she puts herself in or the relationships she has with often men, sadly, around her are dangerous to that child. And her ability or not ability, because it's not always her choice, but her agency to get herself out of that situation is sometimes limited, and therefore there's a lot of risk to that child, and we see that a lot. And that's what he said. But often those are the cases where if that mum can kind of get out of that loop, out of that social group, she can rebuild her life with support from social services, that she can then have an opportunity to care for her child and do really well. But then when you throw drugs in there as well, and drug dependency, that has a huge impact as well on things like alcohol.
But actually, yeah, I mean, alcohol's, in terms of the physical development of the child, is far more detrimental than drugs, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So most of the sort of younger children we've cared for, especially newborns, have come from, either have issues around drug dependency and are on sort of withdrawal medications, or pre-fetal alcohol syndrome, so kind of affected by alcohol consumption by the mother whilst they're pregnant. So yeah, so it's pretty much the same really. The reasons vary case by case in their severity, but every time it's really sad and it's really hard to hear, and it makes you really want things to be better in society, definitely. So my second kind of bad thing is, on a slightly different note, is planning is difficult. So as a foster carer, if you're considering fostering and you like, regular date nights, spending your weekends wandering around garden centres, spending your Saturdays, I don't know, at National Trust or something,
playing croquet,
going to the beach, some foreign holiday every 5 minutes, sipping wine on the beach, then it might be that fostering isn't for you, because fostering is a commitment, because you're committing to that child, and particularly as we discussed with their behaviors and some of the stuff that comes out because of their trauma, they need really intensive, very hands-on kind of parenting. But also just in the nature of fostering, and you don't know when a child is going to need to come to your home, or when a child might move on to a permanent situation, that it's very difficult to plan things like holidays and say, oh, we're going to go abroad at this point in the summer, because you don't really know what's going to happen with the child you're caring for. And that child also, whilst they're with you, needs to have family time arranged with their family. So that can be from as little as a couple of times a year to 3 times a week of seeing their family and supervised contact. So it's difficult to plan. It's not impossible. It's difficult. And also, as a family, my wife and I are very keen that we, as far as possible, the children, when they're with us, they come on holiday with us. So that means that we have to kind of go on different kinds of holidays, spend a bit more, go to different sort of places. So planning is harder. You can't just live freestyle and do what you want. But that would be my second one.
Do you have a third?
So my third would be the reality of working in a broken system. So, if we watch the news, if we read the papers and things, you can see that the social care system in the UK is under incredible strain, like financially, massive issues with recruitment of social workers, of foster carers, of adopters, more and more children coming into care. It's really hard. And so the reality for a foster carer is sometimes you've got social workers who don't turn up when they say they will, don't fill in forms when they're meant to, don't turn up to really important meetings about the health of the child, don't, give you really important information like, you need to be here with this child at this time. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. Never mind. You get that happening a lot. It's really frustrating. You get, issues where doctors at the hospital don't communicate with social services or foster carers about the needs of a child. So you've got these people all trying to help this child, not talking to each other, which is incredibly frustrating. You get issues where decisions are made about what that child needs or wants, and no one speaks to you as their foster carer who's looking after them 24/7 and probably has the best understanding, other than the child, of what they want or what would be best for them. So you need to have a really thick skin to be a foster carer. For every broken bit of the system, there are 10 wonderful bits. There are 10 stories of children being cared for, children having great experiences of parents being supported to look after their children again, or family members in the family, or adopters adopting. For every rubbish social worker, there are some. Sorry for saying it. There are some rubbish social workers. I think that what I find is, yes, the system's under strain. Yes, it's a really hard job, but you meet these social workers who are so committed to it, and they do everything they can to do things right for the kids. They keep their eye on the ball, which is the kid, and they make sure that everything happens that possibly can within their power to make this work for that child. Yet every now and then you get a social worker who uses the strain on the system as an excuse for not being very good at their job. And that frustrates me, of not attending meetings, of not turning up when they say they will. Yes, sometimes things can't happen. Yes, things happen. But as a foster care, when you work for years with different social workers, the ones who are really committed to those kids. And every now and then you get ones who just don't have it in them, and they shouldn't be doing it. And I think actually, if they didn't do it, there'd be more space for better social workers, because 99% of them are absolutely amazing and give so much themselves emotionally and physically and just into the time to what they do. And they're brilliant people. So you need to have a thick skin to be a foster carer, would be my takeaway from that.
Yeah. I can certainly testify the majority of our social workers have been very good, but we do encounter the odd not so good one. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, and I think because of the system is struggling, I think they could sort of coast along and get less noticeable, because you can just blame, oh, there's not enough money, oh, it's so hard, oh, there's too much going on. Whereas actually, I work in my job with young people with care experience. I was talking to this young girl, we're in her 20s now, and she said this incredibly powerful line. She said, "You may have 3,000 caseloads, but I only have one you." And I thought, wow. That's true, isn't it? These children have one social worker assigned to them to stand up for them, to advocate them, to help them. That social worker may have millions of things going on, but that child only has you. And I thought it was really powerful.
That was powerful, yeah.
We've talked about the good. We've talked about the bad. Should we go on to the, you say ugly, or the unique? Maybe a little unique thing to finish.
I've got a unique one, which I'll run past you. So I think what remains crucial for the childhood children is that sense of where they kind of come from and their kind of roots, and that's really important and will retain to be important. I think when you initially adopt a child or children, you're very vulnerable, and actually talking and thinking about their past birth family can be quite hard. I remember not being able to look at photographs of them. I found it a very peculiar thing, but it is really important to keep that constantly within the conversation with our children. Talk about tummy mummy, tummy daddy, and where they're forever family now for our forever mum and dad. So the journey of adoption is a constant blending of families, and it's not the case where you should just close that door and never speak about it or read any letters or look at any photos. I don't think that's very helpful for the child, because I think it is really important to know where you come from and the reasons. I mean, age appropriate, of course, but to just keep it in the conversation and keep it in the light rather than like a dirty secret in their life. I think that is a very unique thing for adopters and the adoption journey.
Yeah, certainly in recent years it's changed a lot, hasn't it? The best practice is to be open about it, as you say, age appropriately, rather than just, oh, you were always here, almost like brushing it under the carpet. It's saying, actually, no, you did come from somewhere else, and recognizing that, and that will help them as they become adults to understand who they are and their identity. And as foster care, so we do a lot of work with life story work. So with the children with us for however many years, where we do photo books and sort of write things down and memories and funny moments when they started walking, when they pooed in the bath, this sort of stuff. Because we're really aware that when that child moves on to another home, they don't have us to share those memories with. So a lot of our memories of childhood are actually not things that we've remembered from when we were 3. There's stories that we've shared with our parents and our siblings as we've grown up. Do you remember the time when Andy did this, or when when Andy asked out that girl and she said no? And that's
never.
But actually, those shared stories kind of grow with you as a family, and you sit around the dinner table, sit at Christmas times of the year, and you share those stories over and over again. Whereas a child in care has kind of missed a bit of that. Especially if they come to care when they're older, they've missed that, so they can't now refer to those stories. So it's important to sort of help them understand, yes, the big parts of their stories, the chapter titles, that where they lived and why and what happened, but also just those small stories about life and those funny things that happened, and have those pictures of that time they went to the park, or when they had their first uniform for reception at school, and all that sort of stuff. That's a good one.
Yeah, our children have had very good foster parents and actually very good life storybook work done through the county council, and we found it very useful sitting down with our eldest, and we'll be doing it with our youngest at some point, just looking through the book, looking through the pictures, and just some of the reasons behind the story about why they left their original biological family, because I'm sure they will grow up constantly thinking, and is it their fault? Was it their fault? Why did this happen? And just try and making sense of that is quite a potentially complex and long journey to unravel. So yeah, well done, foster care Joe, for doing your good work.
Well, there we go. It's important. It really is important. And I mean, also selfishly, it's a lovely memory for us as well. So when we create these life story books about their story and about pictures and things and what they've done and how they came to us, we keep a copy for ourselves.
Okay.
Sometimes we take certain bits out if we feel that they're particularly personal to that child's experience. But having those photos and just a collective memory of their time with us is really precious to us. So we have lots of these photo books now that sit on our shelf, and we really proudly look through them quite regularly. One more very small, unique thing for fostering is other people's reactions when you meet them for the first time. So when I am walking along and I've got two children from a southeastern heritage in my buggy that I'm pushing along, how people react and how they try to work out in their brains, why do these children look so different to this dad, is entertaining.
Interesting when they see you and your wife, who is from a white British background as well.
Yeah, so sometimes me and Helen, who's from a white British background as well, and we're walking along, we've got children we're fostering who are from, so for example, Southeast Asian, and the reactions of people is interesting. How some people would just ask straight out, oh, why do they look different? Or, are they your children?
Okay.
Which is fine, yeah. Because most people try to be very British and will sort of skirt around, oh, aren't your children lovely? And they sort of just have this awkward look of uncertainty, which I quite enjoy. We don't always tell people we're foster carers because I don't think that has to be the identity of those children all the time, that they're in foster care. Yeah, actually, sometimes, well, they don't need to know, do you?
It's not actually their business to know the reasons.
Exactly. But with newborns especially, every other person wants to come and stroke them and poke them and, oh, little new baby. It's all very lovely. But yeah, we don't always reveal that we're foster carers. So, and I really enjoyed that. I feel like we spoke about some of the more difficult things in our roles and the reality of it. And I hope that's helpful to people because it's not easy to be an adoptive parent or to be a foster carer. But I would say it's really worthwhile. So, Andy, I really enjoyed that conversation. That was great. We often like to end. One often likes to end a podcast with something a bit different. So I've got a question for you, kind of related to a conversation we had at the beginning.
Okay.
So, Andy, if you could be on any reality TV show, which one would it be and why?
I think I'd be good at the millionaire thing. I'm quite good at.
You just want money.
General knowledge.
Who wants to be a millionaire, you mean?
Yeah, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Is that reality TV?
Don't know. That's more
a game show.
More of a quiz show. What about Alone? Because I want to be alone.
Oh, Alone, yeah. Oh, so you just have like a knife and a pair of pants in the forest for 3 months.
I've already got the beard, so
you do like you like your wilderness and your sort of Dutch oven and your bits and pieces and
yes.
To Alone. I really do like Race Across the World. I think I'd be hard pressed not to do that. I'd really like to do that. I think it'd be really good fun. Or, as already mentioned, Traitors I think would be fun as well.
Yeah. Would you be a traitor or would you prefer to be a faithful?
I think I'd like to be a traitor. I think it'd be fun. Doing little winks, when they wink at the camera and all that. I'd get caught. That'd be terrible. But it was stupid. Yeah, I'd really enjoy that. I think that would be fun. I think, most reality TV can get in the bin. It's rubbish. But I really enjoy Traitors, Race Across the World. Alone is good.
What are we doing next, Joe?
So next in the pod, so we've got a few things on the cooker. So we've got some interviews lined up, which I'm not going to reveal names yet, but we've got some quite big names, which I'm quite excited about in the world of fostering, who are going to speak to us about their roles and their experience as well, which I think would be great. And yeah. And what can people do, Andy, if they want to support our podcast?
Well, they can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, the YouTube channel is key because I think a lot of people we've seen are downloading our podcast on Spotify, Apple, etc., which is great. But it'd be really helpful if you could also subscribe to our YouTube channel because we will be putting some video content on there, which would be exclusive to YouTube subscribers. So please get on YouTube, Other People's Kids podcast, and subscribe, follow, and like. Please. I think that's about everything for today, Andy. It's been really good chatting. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Bye for now.